What is going on, everybody? Anon here, and I want to talk about the state of the markets. There have been a lot of videos coming through YouTube with clickbait titles on the Pokemon side, talking about how the bubble's going to burst and all these red flags and signs of the apocalypse. And on the Magic the Gathering side, it's just it's everything's hyped. You can't buy it; it's overpriced. It's going to push all the buyers out of the market, all the players out of the market. So I want to level set on what the market looks like, how I'm reading the market, what my thoughts are. So I want to start with Magic, then we'll transition to Pokemon. So with Magic the Gathering, we were having conversations in Discord yesterday, the day before, and we were just trying to figure out why Wizards of the Coast would steamroll Spider-Man and uh, really start pushing spoilers for Avatar. It kind of reminded me of what they did with Aether Drift, right? As Aether Drift started to crater, they immediately hit the market with Final Fantasy spoilers. In fact, it was like the day before the Tarkir pre-release went on sale, or I shouldn't say pre-release, but orders were open. So it was super bizarre. Now in that scenario, it was most likely to distract from Aether Drift, which was kind of falling off a cliff. In this scenario, it didn't make a whole lot of sense. Now, it's pretty commonly accepted that the play boosters for Spider-Man that have been cut as heavily as they have a distribution are being held back to sell through Amazon. So there are some folks on YouTube who continue to talk about how they're short printed and this and that. They're not short printed. Just stop. They're not short printed. That's not going to happen. Rudy did a video today. There are also some other rumblings and rumors from distribution. I believe Gunroad Games did a video on this as well about how potentially Ravensburger with Lorcana got pissed at Disney, who owns Marvel, because Marvel did the licensing deal with Wizards of the Coast and this and that, and there's not a second wave coming. Everybody needs to take a step back. If you're experienced in the business world, you've seen this most likely before. If you're not, I'm going to tell you exactly what's most likely going to happen. So Spider-Man's going to be a hit. The play boxes at release are going to be through the roof, probably higher than what Final Fantasy is today. The allocations are extremely tight. The collector boosters, I don't know. I am still extremely skeptical. Now, the cards are going to be awesome. For sure. They're going to be sought after. But the fact that they have no serialized card in the collector box is a big non-starter for me. And the reason for that is I don't trust Wizards of the Coast to not print this thing until they're blue in the face. And if there are not serialized cards in the box, there's no transparency into the print runs. And again, you can print to high hell and just do what you did with Final Fantasy. And instead of saying serialized card less than 1%, make it 0.01% or 0.1% or whatever they did. That's perfectly fine. But something like that, they can, and again, I'm not saying they're going to reprint them similar to what they did with Kamigawa. But what I'm saying is it really opens the door for abuse. So people talk about, well, they don't reprint collector boxes, but what is the definition of a reprint? Maybe they have print time booked. Maybe they take a couple days off, a couple weeks off. They keep all the dies in place. Then they come back after demand comes out and they're like, you know what? We're going to reprint, or we're going to continue to print packs. Because remember, they're printing packs and then they're stuffing them in the applicable packaging after the fact. But the gift bundle, which wasn't on anybody's radar when the pre-orders came out at distro, it magically showed up 10 days or 14 days after. I assume it was planned, most likely, but they could continue to print these as long as they have packs. That being said, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are going to gamble on the fact that they don't believe that Wizards of the Coast is going to do a second reprinting. And well, since there's a potential legal dispute, that's the end of it. I am going to tell you, with this much money involved, Wizards of the Coast, Ravensburger, quite honestly, I don't think anybody should give a shit about Lorcana because it's dead, but that's a different conversation. Disney loves money. Wizards of the Coast is going to figure out a way to settle this. They're going to get the IP cleared. They're going to get the licensing cleared, and they are going to reprint it. and they're going to reprint it, and they're going to reprint it again. So this is a little bit of a bump in the road, but in every scenario in my entire business career, and again, I'm a little bit on the older side, I'm mid 40s, when there's been a significant amount of money involved and there are multiple clear paths for all parties to win, there ends up being a negotiation where all that money gets monetized and it gets split amongst all parties. It's going to happen here. Don't get suckered into, I'm going to sit on Spider Man forever because it's going to be a $500 play box. Not going to happen. It's just not. Collector boxes are probably going to be $1,000. But again, the fact that there is no serialized card in the box, from my perspective, it's not about the value of the serialized card. It's about the transparency and the market confidence that they're not going to reprint. So, that being said, let's move on to Avatar. So, Avatar, there's a lot of folks that have done videos on Avatar versus Spider-Man. I think the mainstream customer base is more interested in Spider-Man. I think it's going to attract a lot of non-Magic players who like Spider-Man, very similar to what Magic the Gathering and quite honestly Lord of the Rings did. And then the LGS nerds, the folks that are in there playing all the time, it's not even close. They want Avatar. They don't give two shits about Spider-Man. So it's an interesting dichotomy there between the two groups. Now, Avatar collector boosters, my fear is they don't have collector or they don't have a serialized card in the set again. If that's the case, you are coming from 5 sets in a row that had serialized cards, perhaps to build confidence in the market, to keep value in the sets. Now, Aether Drift and Estrada Remastered didn't perform very well. The rest of the sets did, quite honestly. So, don't really know what they're thinking, but taking them out for the 2 biggest sets of the year, one can only assume that they're doing it because they want to abuse the system, they want to print as much as they can, and they want to cash in. So again, with Avatar, scares the crap out of me. Now, some folks have mentioned on videos, and I will confirm that, we have gotten allocations from certain distributors. We've gotten an allocation of an actual minimum from distributors where it's a not to be less than, if you will. The numbers for Avatar, there are more play boxes here than what there were for Spider-Man. Now I know certain distributors who have come out with you won't get less than this, have been a reduction from Spider-Man. But quite honestly, that's probably just hedge because between now and November, nobody knows what the hell is going to go on. So if I'm distribution, I am hedging my bets because all the distributors kind of got screwed over by Final Fantasy. And it wasn't the fact that anybody did anything wrong. It's the fact that all of the powers that be underestimated the demand for the product. So, some of these ancillary products like Jumpstart booster boxes at 180. Now, I hope to God they sell there, but I have never seen a Jumpstart booster box, a box that is made for intro level players, be anywhere close to that because intro level players aren't going to pay that for it. And there are a lot of SKUs in this set. I think there's starter sets. There's like 2-pack. I assume you just break them and put them together and shuffle them and play a card and make a deck out of it. But it's entirely too early to pre-order for the set. All of these prices I would not pay. I would not even charge these prices. I would feel dirty charging $9.58 for a collector box. Certainly $2.55 for a play box. What is this? 3 months before release. And then you look at some of the other stuff. The scene boxes. The scene boxes are interesting. Now there's 2 different scene boxes. I don't know why. Could just be for marketing, but now that there's some additional packs in there, it's sort of interesting. But the long story short, with Magic, regardless of what you hear about any sort of dispute, Wizards is going to figure out a way to get more product to market. And a lot of times it's just you recut the deal a little bit and you pay a little bit of an additional royalty to the parent, which is Disney, and they're going to tell Ravensburger to, shut up. And it's pretty much that simple. So Don't get caught with Spider-Man. I would not pre-order Avatar at this point. The prices are insanely high. And quite honestly, if they stay at this point and Avatar comes out, we're going to have a lot of different conversations because this would be to the point where it's unhealthy for Wizards. So if they truly can't print, and I'm not sure that's the case, then we're just having much different conversations. Now, I did hear something today that made a little bit of sense to me, and I don't profess to know the print timelines leading up to a set release, but with Final Fantasy, given that there was a second wave that came in right around official release, not pre-release, and then a third wave that came in a couple weeks later, and then the second and the third wave came from Japan as opposed to the US. The thought process was, well, perhaps they continued to print Final Fantasy because there was so much demand at the detriment of Spider-Man and all these other reprints for the sets that we haven't gotten yet, which is plausible. We're never going to know. But I think that was an interesting concept. Now, again, if that's the case, at some point you're just giving up printing something and you're going to catch up eventually. It's going to happen. And quite honestly, there is absolutely an amount of product that they can dump on the market that's going to smash the price, as we've just seen with the Final Fantasy collector commander displays. There have to have been close to 100,000 of those that were just dropped on the market across everybody. Now, the good news is it seems like instead of pushing a handful out to everybody, they are selling some larger chunks to some of the bigger players, which does help the race to zero because you don't have a bunch of financially incompetent stores undercutting people by prices. They're capitalized enough and sophisticated enough to sit on product and know it's going to churn through. And, I don't have to pay $160 for something and sell it for $175 and break even with fees and shipping just to churn product. I can sit here for a month or two, and then when the price goes back up over $225, $250, because there is not another reprint on the schedule as of now, at least through the end of Q1 of 2026, then I can sell it. I can make some money. I can always crack it, sell singles, yada, yada, yada. So that is the magic market. It doesn't concern me at all at this point. The only thing that concerns me is folks acting on what they think to be an absolute, which is there isn't a second print run or print wave, print run, reprint, whatever you want to call it, of Spider-Man Play. It is going to happen. It is a virtual certainty that it's going to happen at some point in time. So that being said, let's move on to Pokemon. So Mega Evolutions, as we talked about yesterday, this is now coming out in 2 waves. And this is where it gets really, really interesting. So with the Pokemon Company, you are not releasing something late. You're not moving the release date. We actually saw this last year with Shrouded Fable when they rushed to get the set in before Worlds in Hawaii. The ETBs came, it was either the ETBs or the booster bundles came a month late. I think it was the ETBs. I think the booster bundles came out and were legal for the event, but the ETBs were late. We do see it happen from time to time, but really not at the magnitude that we're seeing here. So this screams that they're having supply chain issues, and it's most likely not components. So the enhanced booster boxes, they're all made of cardboard that they're presumably getting from the Pacific Northwest, from Canada, from where. It's cardboard. It's a certain grade cardboard or stock, and they're cutting it, they're bending the boxes, and then they're using it and they're cutting it and they're laminating the cards. So the fact that we're getting 60% of this leading up to release, we don't even know if it's going to be in distributors' hands for pre-release. Now, I'm sure that the build and battle boxes and some booster boxes will be there for pre-release events. But we're not sure yet if the booster boxes and the ETBs will be there. And then the second wave, everybody's kind of adopted the within 3 weeks. But I've heard, since this is releasing on September 26th, that it's supposed to be shipping from the Pokemon Company to distribution between October 15th and October 22nd. So October 15th would be 3 weeks. It sounds to me like in a realistic scenario, we as stores may not get product until closer to November 1st for the remaining 40% of the product. So there's going to be a shortage at release. The prices are probably going to spike. And again, this is booster boxes, ETBs, booster bundles, sleeved booster cases, and 3-pack blisters. The 1-pack check lane appears to be on time. Not going to move the needle. But the reason I say all of that, there's been an awful lot of clickbait on how there's red flags and bubbles, and we've recently gotten. In fact, I got an order today for, or an allocation, I should say, for Surging Sparks and Twilight Masquerade booster box or ETB cases, which is great. The price is not original price; it is an increased price, but it is meaningfully below market. So I would gladly take it. Now, what's interesting? I'm very interested to see the booster box case and see if it is in fact a reprint versus an original print. And the only reason I say that, and it seems to be the fact that it's coming through distribution, the fact that it's going through MJ Holdings, Excel, marketing, as well as GameStop, leads me to believe it's most likely a reprint. But it could also be a reprint plus a reallocation of existing product from other countries into the US. And the example I'll give you is about a month ago, I imported from a foreign country, English print, made in the USA, ETBs, Twilight Masquerade, and Surging Sparks. Now, Surging Sparks, I didn't take a whole lot because the price wasn't competitive, but Twilight was. Twilight was a fantastic price. So they are readily available pretty much all over English-speaking countries outside of the US because the economy for Pokemon in these other markets is reasonably sane compared to where we're at today. So some of the other things that I've seen, and the fact that they're reprinting ETBs and it's causing indirectly a delay in getting the main sets to distribution on time, that doesn't feel like a decision that somebody at Pokemon would make or a risk that they would be willing to take. So there's some weird stuff going on that we probably don't know quite what the answer is to that. Now, some of the other red flags that some of the other YouTubers are talking about is this Japanese McDonald's thing where people went, they paid for food, they got the promos, they threw the food away, and they went home with their free, $14 Pokemon card. That's not a bubble. Maybe you can call it a slight little pocket of mania. It's a bunch of people who like Pokemon that like free shit as well. And they went to McDonald's, they got the card, and now they have a promo that is probably priced at 3 times what it's going to end up being in a month or two. That the fist fights it when there was actually product in Costco and Sam's Club, that's really more a social issue where people see free money and they feel entitled to get it. That's not really unique to Pokemon. That's just something that's always happened. I mean, look at all the sneaker scalpers, botters, whatever. I mean, I'm on the East Coast when Wawa gives away free coffee, like once a summer or whatever it is, there's a line out the door because people like free shit. And, instead of paying $1.99 for a coffee, they'll just go there and get their coffee for free. It's human nature. So I don't read into that as a bubble at all. I look at the market, specifically the sealed market. Even though the volumes have slowed down for summer, we're probably 2 to 3 weeks away from starting to take a look and making sure that we're seeing the volume start to ramp up again after everybody's back at school. But we've seen no significant liquidations on the market of any sets in general. You see your ordinary course, people get boxes, restocks of Surging, restocks of Destined. The margins are so high, they're just selling it in the market, and it evaporates because the market just chews it up and spits it out, and that's that. So we're not seeing that. We have seen some weakness on the single side, and that's probably due to a couple things. The first of which is, obviously as product ages, more and more of it gets ripped. So, very simple concept that everybody on YouTube understands. As the supply of sealed product goes down, the supply of singles goes up. The other piece of that is it could theoretically be factored into the lower rung of the economy, especially here in the US. The jobs market isn't great, especially on the lower end, the unskilled labor end. Yeah, that has a little bit of a negative connotation. So I don't mean that from a negative or a negative perspective. But folks buy Pokemon cards. They lose their job. They have tough times. They go to sell singles, and as the market softens, you end up having to race to zero because you need cash now. So we've seen a lot of the single prices start to recover in the last month. From there, you look at the Bubble Mew. The Bubble Mew is at all time highs. I think last I checked, it was let's see. I'll just go here. Best selling. Should be able to go to singles. Let's go this way. Some of these singles, they're going absolutely nuts. Here we go. So we'll just adjust this real quick to near mint. Now, this card was down. Jesus Christ. Well, I mean, look, this is buyout after buyout after buyout. There's 19 on the market. Looks like there's somebody who's never sold the card for $500. Then you're $600. Then you're at $700. And you got a PSA. This is absolutely through the roof. And we go back here to the chart. I mean, this is just sell off, softness, down to $300. And then all of a sudden you get into summer when things slow down and people start buying them again. And it's not like the numbers got crazy. So 3 per day, 3 per day, 3 per day. I mean, you look at every one of these except for 1 year, and you're getting back into like the hype times when this was a $100 card. The volume has been constant, and it's been constant at 3 per day. So it's not like there's any major buyouts. Now, obviously, there's some of these here, but this is more a function, I think, specifically where you have pockets where singles are starting to get hot again, and people want these, and especially sets that are going to start to rotate out in March, April 2026. Paldean Fates being the most recent set that is going to rotate out. So it's SV1 through 4.5. So I'm not seeing any signs of any cracks in any foundation. Now, are the prices too high at release? Of course they are. But as we get into Mega 2 and then Mega 3 in February, March timeframe, 30th anniversary, I'm sure they're already printing for 30th anniversary because they're going to want to make sure that there's a ton in the market. Things are going to start to slow down. Now, we don't have a black swan event like we did during the COVID bubble. And people who they don't understand basic supply and demand like to say that, oh, well, they'll overprint and they'll smash the market. Well, that's not what really happened. What happened in COVID was once the government unlocked everything and people were able to go outside, now all of a sudden they're diverting a large part of their disposable income to something other than Pokemon. So you had the demand fall off a cliff while the supply was, climbing moderately. Here, you have the supply theoretically climbing moderately. Yeah, I don't think anybody would disagree with that. And the demand probably growing. But even if they put out 1 or 2 crappy sets in a row, the demand's going to slow. But really, to get that demand point to fall off a cliff, I think you're going to have to get to the point where the sets are releasing under MSRP again. So you don't have any of the botters, you don't have any of the hype or any of the mania. And I just think we're so far away from that. Again, I've mentioned this before. The Pokemon Company, by their own words, in distribution meetings, have said that they don't have meaningful printing capacity opening up until the middle or end of Q1 2026. Now, we'll see what that means in 2026. But right now, we are in the middle of Q3 of 2025, so we're nowhere close. So, all the bullshit clickbait titles, all the people that are like, I'm selling my collection. This is the end of Pokemon as we know it, or everything's going MSRP. Just don't pay attention to the noise. Look at the facts. Look at the details. This stuff isn't going to go up forever. But one thing we know about Pokemon is it tends to go up over time if you average everything out. And it is one of the few things in our economy and in our lifetimes where that's happened. So if you're expecting something to happen that's never happened before, best of luck to you. So like the video, subscribe to the channel, join the Discord, and we will talk soon.